What's going on, people? It is episode 22 of Stand Up Sales. We've managed to get back into a regular cadence. We've now managed to find times that actually work for both of us instead of just working for Dylan. And don't keep me up until 9 o'clock on a Tuesday. But here we are, making it happen. Because this is fun. Dylan, today on the agenda, we're talking about establishing credibility early on and throughout the sales call. But specifically, how we're going to make it work.
Exactly. And you've heard us talk about how not to start off sales calls and like the where you're from, how's the weather, current events, all that type of terrible sales jargon that you hear. This is probably the best way that I like to start off sales calls. And it's essentially just like holding the expert frame, if that's a name of a frame. If not, I just coined it. The expert frame. So essentially from a high level, what it is having a very good market understanding of the person that you're speaking with, as well as understanding that person's roles and responsibilities, and making a very educated kind of assumption of the problems that they're facing or surfacing within their business, and being able to easily and concisely tell them, this is what I think you're experiencing, or like based upon going on your website or going to your reviews on Capterra, whatever it is, right? Like actually do your research, come to an educated conclusion on pain points that they're seeing, and then give them that as like an elevator pitch instead of pitching your features and your benefits. Tell them like, hey John, so we're both busy here. Like I understand that you're a CEO of a $500K a month high ticket coaching program. Tell me if I'm off base here, but you're probably experiencing X, Y, and Z things because of these three constraints within your business. Like how far off am I, right? And like use technical jargon, use verbiages that they know. Like if you're talking about paid ads, talk about like why they're ROAS, or why their cost per acquisition is high, and like constraints on their business. And like that person will be like, oh, all right, this guy knows what he's fucking talking about. Like he's helped people like me before, and automatically your status in their mind is not a salesperson anymore, and it's an expert in what it is that you sell.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's super interesting, right? Because it kind of goes slightly against what I normally explain through closing, where it's a lot more based on discovery. But the logic holds, especially if you're in a very competitive market and you need to come in and essentially pattern interrupt your way into them realizing that you're not just going to be selling them the same old shit as everyone else. It's pretty smart.
And it parlays into discovery. Like I'm not shitting on discovery. I'm a big discovery guy. But like being able to set the table, then they're going to be able to order the food that they want, right? And like based off of that, like how far off am I? And they'll literally tell you like what else are their constraints or problems. And like don't do this on like an intro call. Like do this when you have some baseline.
I was gonna say on a like a pure play disco call at the start, I think that might be really difficult to manage.
Yeah.
So this is like demo call intro.
Demo call, yes. Or like you've talking to a stakeholder in their business and now it's the CEO on the call.
Yeah.
But like you gotta keep the status. Because in your eyes, they're a business owner, you're a salesperson. There's a clear hierarchy of like your knowledge in their brain.
Yeah.
And they know that you're trying to sell them. So if you actually come in like, hey man, I already know your needs because I've done this 10,000 times. Mm-hmm. Like, how far off am I? Then they're going to then tell you what their actual real problems are. Or they're like, yeah, like that's exactly our problem. And then they're like, tell me more. Like, how do you know this? Then they're the one that are inquisitive and curious about your offer and how you know all this information so well.
I think it's an interesting reframe from like where most people are when they get to a demo, which is, oh my God, great, now I get to talk about what we do and how we help and all of the rest of it, to, oh yeah, so by the way, I was thinking about it, or I was looking at it, or whatever. This is what I think is the actual problem, and this is why I think you guys haven't been able to achieve XYZ goals that we talked about last time.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes back to the idea of like people like when you do the research because it makes them feel important. But realistically, from your experience, how long does that actual research take?
I mean, if you're selling to a specific avatar, you should probably be able to do it in your sleep. Like you go to their website, maybe you test their funnel, you see how fast their speed to lead is, right? Like you texted, you get email, did someone actually call you? If they did call you, take the call, like hear their setter, like actually become a prospect, and then you're going to be able to tell them exactly what's wrong because you've been in the seat of the people that they're selling to, but you know you're looking at it from a different lens.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Because if we have like a first call with somebody, right, and they say that their booking rate is low or their show rate is low, like that's a setup problem, right? Or it's an operations problem. But we're going to be able to identify that if we actually go through their funnel.
Go through the funnel.
Because if we don't get called for like 2.5 hours, I have a lot of ammunition on the call. Because not only can I tell them that's a problem, I can be like, well, actually, John, if you didn't know it, I already went through your funnel and your setter took 2.5 hours to call me. Like, if we just come in and fix that problem, you're going to start seeing ROI. The reason how we can solve that problem is that we train reps, we create systems and processes to create a speed to lead within 15 minutes of an opt-in.
Gotcha. Now I'm just thinking of funnel hacking all of my potential clients and turning up to their calls and seeing how they do sales.
Yeah. Or like, I actually watched half your VSL and never booked a call, but no one ever got in contact with me. What if you were able to track that and call those people and monetize more people in your funnel?
Super interesting, dude.
Yeah.
Super interesting. And I think it speaks to like how to establish credibility on calls more broadly. Like, yeah, at the start of a demo is important because it's going to change the frame of how most people do demos from point zero. But I think there's also something to be said about the idea of establishing credibility, like when you move through the processes of a call, right? Yeah. And I think the big thing that I have done historically, you know, even fucking selling stuff like suits, right? Like, you need to know the landscape in the industry better than the person who's trying to buy the thing. Yeah. Because that's the ultimate source of credibility, right? So weird story, and I don't really talk about like me selling suits that much, but like that was the first thing that popped into my head. There was a guy who wanted to, so he spent half of his time in like Dubai in the Middle East, and then half of his time in like, I don't know, like somewhere where the temperature was way more variable. I think somewhere in Canada where it like switched between being like kind of summer and then kind of winter. Yeah. And he came in and he was like, right, I want to buy like 2 suits that are going to do me for like really hot, mild, and then like cold. And I was like, you're never going to be able to do that. It's just not going to happen. Yeah. And he ended up buying a bunch of them, not because like I told him why it wasn't going to happen, was because I could give him very specific fabric mills that would allow for X, Y, and Z. He's like, how do you even know this stuff?
That's like, dude, that is the perfect analogy and example of what I'm talking about here. Yeah. Is like you're saying things that only an expert would know, and someone who's buying something wants to know what they don't know.
They're in good hands. And that they're in good hands, 100%.
Yeah, like you're not going to be like, you're only going to pitch this suit because you make a higher commission on it, and then you're going to give features to why this suit is good for him. Mm-hmm. You're actually understanding his problem and then providing him exactly what he needs, not what he wants to hear.
Yeah, exactly. So with that in mind then, like what... Because it's kind of quote-unquote easier for you, right? Where you can funnel hack people and go through the setter, like see what happens when this person who is meant to be there either does or doesn't do the thing, or does it poorly, or they don't have a system there at all, and you go through it with 0 input or 0 action on their side. What happens when you don't have that?
Let's say you're a lead gen agency. Mm-hmm. It's a good, probably a lot of our listeners, right? Yeah. Go on their LinkedIn, see what their workforce looks like. If they don't have people or dedicated salespeople, you can probably make a good understanding that someone's doing sales that's not their core responsibility. Yeah. And you can say that, like, hey, I looked at your guys' LinkedIn profile, didn't look like you have any dedicated like sales reps or closers. So I'm assuming that a lot of that sales outreach responsibility might fall on your shoulders or someone else on your team. Mm-hmm. And they probably are wearing multiple different hats. So, 100% of their focus is not the generating qualified meetings on the calendar. Mm-hmm. Is that far off?
So it's very much like reasoned hypothesis.
Yeah. Yeah. But like if you can make them feel heard without them having to tell you,
That's
that's
the
like
goal.
that's the goal. It's like that's exactly the problem. Like if you can identify that problem like immediately, then they're like, okay, so you've obviously solved this problem in the past. Like what is it that you do differently that could help solve it for us? And then the framing comes more to like you're a problem solver than more of you're a
Versus
seller.
selling, just shilling whatever you have to sell.
Yeah, or like having to extract the pain because that's contingent on your abilities and that person's willingness to share the information that you actually need to gather to then pitch.
Interesting. So let's give a rogue example. Would a fucking, I don't know, maybe like TikTok ads or something like that, right? Review the ads that are already up, see what they're doing well, see what they're doing badly. It's almost like a mini audit before you get on the
Yeah,
on the demo call. You
yeah,
go, "Ah, so I saw this, and then this means that, and then that means that this. Is that pretty accurate?" Yeah, okay, this makes sense.
yeah. Like I see you're creating a lot of content, but after watching like 10 or 15 of your videos, there was no clear defined call to action. So that's probably why you're not getting like direct results from your content. Like, I'm guessing that you're not booking that many calls through your TikTok.
It's interesting, right? Because when you go down this road of, hey, I'm gonna go and just make these assumptions and hope for the best, because that's kind of what you're doing. They're educated guesses, but they're still assumptions. Can you get backed into a corner if it all goes pear-shaped? Yeah, of course you can. But if you know the industry, and I think that's an important point to make, you have to know your industry well enough to know that you're not just talking out your ass.
Yeah,
And you have to know
exactly.
your service well enough to know that you're not just talking out your ass. Because if you don't, that's how you're going to get backed into corners on sales calls.
Yeah. So like, if that person's like, yeah, like our content is there only to like nurture people, then you can try to break that like limiting belief. Given maybe success that you've already had with someone else, or like referencing someone that is widely known in that space that's doing something better than them. Because everyone wants to know what they don't know, right? That's human nature, is you want to figure
And
out
close
that
that
secret
loop.
formula. Yeah, you want the treasure map, right? Like, but you're providing that. You're giving them a clear cut like frame in their head that you're the person that's going to take them from X to Y.
Yeah.
And like if they're like, nah, it's not really our problem, like then you come at it from like you've never heard that before energy. Like really? Like so you're not experiencing this pain point? Okay, and then you dig into that, right? And like at least they know that you know. Maybe they're different. Or maybe they're just not a good fit and you just figure that out.
Very interesting, Dill.
Yeah.
Very good. Just dropping knowledge as usual, mate.
That's why we're on these calls.
Yeah, man. This was like a little like mini episode where Dylan just had this really interesting thing to say, came on and said it, and we're like, all right, cool, we're done here.
Yeah. I mean, what other ways do you see starting a call besides like standard stuff?
Transparently, I've not seen any that I like that stand out to me as like, you know what, that was a really smart, interesting way of starting a call. So I've heard of the whole like make hypotheses at the start of calls that I read in the Challenger sale, but other than that, that was kind of like the first interesting one that I've heard, and then you developed that into what we described on this.
Yeah.
I think the it's easier to kind of like, via negativa your way through it, where you just realize what you hate at the start of calls. What made you book a call today? What made you jump on the phone?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like there's like that's like the most prime real estate. Like think of it like a website. You don't keep
Yeah.
your best shit at the bottom of the page. Like start off hot. And like you got to establish credibility, especially if you're selling a high ticket service. Like for someone to fork over a large amount of cash, they have to feel confident in your abilities to take that cash and turn it into a profit. So like the faster that you can establish that you know what the fuck you're talking about and that this isn't something that's new or uncharted for you, like the much more confident they're going to be in your abilities. And like to preface this, like you need to know actually what you're talking about and have a good product that you're confident in selling, or all of this doesn't work. Probably should have prefaced that in the beginning, but like, you need to have done this successfully for others. You need to know exactly what it is that your product sells and serves, and then do that based on that.
Where do you think people are going to fall down on this? Like, where doesn't this work, or where does this get really tricky?
I think it just becomes really tricky if you're just
not good at the thing.
It's the delivery and the conviction, and you're selling it. Yeah, which is most sales.
So it just adds an extra layer to what most people have in their arsenal. I'm definitely going to try it for sure. Now I'm more intrigued than anything else. So next episode will be a week of me trying this out and seeing what happens, and we'll see if I fall on my ass.
Yeah, like if you're selling like client ascension, right? You know the pain points that these people are seeing.
Yeah.
There's not like a crazy variability in problems.
Mm-hmm.
Usually they have like 3 core constraints.
Yeah.
Or else they wouldn't have booked a call.
Yeah. Lead gen, sales, poor fulfillment.
Yeah, and like the way you pitch is like, oh, so you guys run like a pay-per-call lead gen agency? All right, cool, awesome. So like, we've done this like 25, 35 times, and stop me if I'm incorrect here, but you're probably experiencing this problem because of this problem, and that problem because of that problem, and then this problem because of this problem. Like, is that far off?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So like, and then you kind of just go into it.
Yeah, I'm gonna try this out. See what the deal is. Oh well, you know what? Speaking of, we literally have a demo call today, so I'm expecting to see you do this.
Yeah. All right,
at the start, and if you fuck it up, I'm gonna come and flog you on next week's podcast episode.
To my defense, there, I've never spoken to you.
Early doors excuses.
Yeah, no, but in all seriousness, like, some person, just a random guy, Jacob, just introduced me to somebody, and then here we are. Jacob meaning you.
I just chose to ignore it, I'll be honest with you. But anyway, on that happy note, I think we're gonna call a very early end to this. I wanna keep the amount of value in this, as niche as possible.
All right, cool. Well, I guess we'll see you next week in Stand Up Sales 23, and maybe Jacob will share something.
I'll fucking stop doing this podcast if you keep on like this.
That was great in my head. That wasn't even on purpose. That was just natural.
Great. All right, gentlemen.
We'll see you next week.
Peace.